They say people will forget what you said, and they may forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. In a world spinning faster every day, where recognition is fleeting and everyone rushes to be seen, one quiet force remains underrated and overlooked: the simple act of sincere praise. Not flattery, not manipulation, but genuine appreciation, the kind that touches the heart, lifts the spirit, and awakens something long asleep in the soul. You may not have millions, you may not have a title, but you have this power. And in today's cold, transactional world, that power, when wielded sincerely, can change lives. Think of Abraham Lincoln. Throughout his presidency, he carried a worn, folded newspaper clipping in his coat pocket. It praised his leadership in a moment when critics circled like wolves. That small piece of paper wasn't strategy. It wasn't policy. It was a lifeline. Because even the strongest among you, socially, the strongest crave to be seen, heard, valued. And the tragedy? Most of us think appreciation, but we never say it. We assume others know what we feel. We miss our moment, and their soul misses the warmth. We wait for the big win, the promotion, the perfect moment. But the perfect moment to encourage someone is always now. You don't have to fix someone's life. Sometimes you just need to say, "You did that really well. I saw how hard you tried. You make a difference." One sentence, one spark, one ripple that could grow into a wave. Dale Carnegie understood this decades ago. He taught that praise must be specific and sincere, not to manipulate, but to nourish, not to control, but to uplift. You see, in a garden, plants need light, but humans, they need encouragement. Not everyone blossoms in the spotlight. Some are waiting for a single drop of affirmation to grow. And you, yes, you can be the one to water that seed. Maybe you're thinking, what if I have no one encouraging me? That's the secret. Become the encourager you wish you had. Because when you become the source of light, you start to reflect it. You rise by lifting others. You find your voice by giving others theirs. And don't be fooled, this is not weakness. In a culture that rewards ego and applause, it takes strength to be kind. It takes vision to believe in others when the world tells you to compete. But here's the paradox. The more you praise sincerely, the more influence you build. Because people are drawn not to critics, but to builders, those who see potential and call it out. Have you ever walked out of a conversation feeling 10 feet taller? Like you could take on the world? That's the legacy of a genuine encourager. You may forget the words, but you never forget the impact. And here's something even more powerful. When you begin to practice sincere praise, no as a tactic, but as a habit, you start to change. You notice more. You listen deeper. You become aware of the invisible victories others carry in silence. That shy coworker who speaks up in a meeting, the friend who shows up even when their world is crumbling, the teenager trying to do the right thing when the crowd says otherwise. We live in a world obsessed with what's loud, polished, perfect. But praise, real praise, often belongs to the unseen, the quiet, the effort no one else notices. And when you give voice to that effort, something incredible happens. Trust is born, not overnight, not with one compliment, but like layers of rock formed by time and pressure. Genuine praise builds something stronger than any resume: human connection. Because here's a truth most people miss. Before someone will follow your lead, buy your idea, or open up their heart, they need to feel safe with you. And the fastest way to build that safety? See them, acknowledge them, celebrate them. That's not sentimentality. That's strategy, the kind Dale Carnegie mastered. He knew that influence begins not with arguments, but with affirmation. And while the world fights to be right, the wise person fights to be kind. Think of it like this. If life is a stage, most people are desperate to be the lead. But what if your greatest power was being the audience who claps not out of pity, but because you genuinely believe in what someone else is becoming? That applause, it echoes in their spirit for years. And yes, there will be times when your praise is misunderstood, dismissed, even rejected. Give it anyway, because you never know who's standing on the edge of giving up until your words pull them back. That's the hidden power we carry. Not in our strength, our money, or our status, but in our choice to lift others up when the world tears them down. You're not just giving praise, you're giving oxygen, and in a world that feels like it's gasping for hope, your words could be the breath that saves someone. Now pause for a moment. Think back to a time someone believed in you before you believed in yourself. Maybe it was a teacher who saw something in your words. A manager who said, "I trust your judgment." A friend who whispered, "You've got this," when your world was unraveling. You didn't forget that moment. Because we are shaped not only by what we achieve, but by who sees us on the way up. And here's the hard truth. Most people walk through life like they're starving for approval, for dignity, for someone to say, "You matter." But instead of giving them that, the world offers silence, or worse, criticism masked as honesty. And yet, there you are, with the power to shift an entire narrative with a single phrase. Not "you're amazing" thrown out casually, but something real, something specific, something that says, "I see the effort, I see the courage, I see the growth." That's not just communication. That's healing. It rebuilds what others have torn down. It reawakens the parts of people that have gone numb from being ignored, because every human carries invisible scars. But they also carry seeds of potential. And your words? They're sunlight. They're water. They're the thing that helps someone bloom in a place they thought they'd only wither. Carnegie wasn't just teaching people how to win friends. He was teaching them how to become the kind of person others feel safe to grow around. And in a culture that prizes speed and perfection, those who take the time to notice others become rare, and the rare become unforgettable. Imagine the kind of leader who doesn't just give instructions, but inspires belief. The kind of parent who doesn't just correct, but encourages. The kind of friend who doesn't just listen, but lifts. That's not charisma, that's character. And the beautiful paradox is this. The more you shine a light on others, the more your own path becomes illuminated. Because praise isn't a transaction, it's transformation. And that transformation is not only for them, it's for you. You begin to see the world differently, not as a competition to be won, but as a community to be built. Not as a stage for your ego, but as a platform for others to rise with you. You no longer chase approval. You become the one who gives it. And in that shift, you stop living small. You step into your greater self. The kind of self who doesn't need the spotlight, because he knows the real power is in lighting someone else's way. So the question becomes, how do you start? Not in a grand speech, not in a viral post, but in the quiet spaces of everyday life. At the coffee shop, when the barista remembers your name, you say, "That means a lot. Thank you." At work, when your teammate stays late to help, you say, "I noticed that. You didn't have to, but you did." At home, when someone shows up, not perfectly, but honestly, you say, "I see how hard you're trying." That matters more than you know. These aren't small moments. These are the moments that hold the world together. It's easy to applaud the finished product, but the real gift is praising someone while they're still in the middle of becoming. That's the praise that heals. That's the praise that sticks. That's the praise that shapes identities. And the more you practice it, the more fluent you become. Not just in speaking, but in seeing. You begin to recognize the weight others carry behind their smile. The stories they don't tell, the strength it takes just to keep going. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start to look people in the eye longer. You start to listen without preparing your reply. You start to live less for approval and more for impact. Because when you trade surface-level praise for soul-level encouragement, something profound happens. You stop trying to impress, and you start trying to empower. Carnegie taught that influence isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about making others feel like they belong in that room. And that begins with a choice. Every day, to pause before you correct, to see before you speak, to value people, not for their perfection, but for their progress. That's what builds loyalty. That's what builds connection. That's what builds legacy. And when you begin to live this way, something shifts inside you too. You become the person others turn to when the noise of the world gets too loud. You become the quiet center in the storm. The one who doesn't just inspire change, but lives it. Because the truth is, you don't need more power to be powerful. You don't need more followers to be a leader. You need only one thing, the courage to care out loud. And maybe, just maybe, that's the quiet revolution the world is waiting for. Not louder voices, but braver hearts. Not perfect people, but honest ones who dare to say, "I see you. I believe in you. You matter." You don't need a stage. You don't need permission. You only need presence. To walk into a room and leave it warmer than you found it. To speak into someone's doubt and replace it with dignity. To notice what most overlook and name it with truth. Because in the end, people will forget the metrics. They'll forget the titles. But they will never forget how you made them feel about themselves. That is the true measure of greatness. It's not what you build. It's what you awaken. Not what you control, but what you elevate. That quiet intern you praised might become the next leader. That discouraged friend you encourage might choose not to give up. That stranger you complimented might walk taller for weeks. All because you didn't hold back your words. All because you chose to give the gift that costs nothing, yet changes everything. So here's the challenge. Today, before the sun sets, speak life into someone. Not a vague compliment. Not a recycled phrase. But a real, specific, sincere word of encouragement. Let them know they're seen. Let them feel the weight of your belief in them. And then, do it again tomorrow. And the next day, until it's no longer what you do. It's who you are. Because that's what the world needs. Not more critics, not more cynics, but more builders, more encouragers. More people who understand the hidden power of praise and choose to use it not for applause, but for impact. The truth is, there's no such thing as a small word of encouragement. Because when spoken with sincerity, even the smallest seed can grow into something eternal. So go, build someone up, stop the chain reaction, and become the kind of person Dale Carnegie always believed we could be, a person who lights up the lives of others, one honest word at a time,